A dispute over federal relief for health insurance premiums has shut down our government, so I asked ChatGPT to pull the facts and put a face on it for easy listening. Meet my data machine. We call him Stat Dude. Stat Dude, you up for talking some budget, federal budget?
Absolutely. Let's dive into it. Talking federal budget always makes for a good bit of fun. Lots of numbers.
Well, yeah. I got a specific question. I'm looking at the Affordable Care Act. And the debate going on right now is Democrats want to extend subsidies, some call them discounts, for health care premiums, health insurance premiums under the Affordable Care Act. My first question, I got a bunch, but my first question is, who qualifies? At what income level do you qualify for health insurance subsidies under the Affordable Care Act?
Absolutely. Let's break that down. So under the Affordable Care Act, the subsidies, or discounts as some like to call them, are basically designed to help people whose income falls between 100% and 400% of the federal poverty level.
Okay, now I'm going to stop you right there, because I hear that number a lot. Let's talk about ways to explain that in raw dollars that most people can relate to, that 400% of poverty. Give me some ideas on how to explain that in lay terms, so to speak.
Absolutely. Let's make it nice and tangible. So if we take a single person as an example, that 400% of the federal poverty level for them might be somewhere around, let's say, a bit over $50,000 a year. For a family of four.
So wait a second. Now let's stop. So an individual who earns $50,000 a year would qualify for a subsidy for a health care premium under the Affordable Care Act, right?
Yep, that's right. So basically, if an individual is earning around $50,000 a year, they're still within that range to qualify for those ACA subsidies. It's all about making those premiums a bit more manageable for a wider range of incomes. So you got it exactly right.
Okay, now let's take that same person earning $50,000 qualifying for that health insurance premium subsidy. How much is the subsidy? How much do they actually get in raw dollars?
Yeah, definitely. So in raw dollars, it can vary a bit depending on where they live and the exact plan they pick. But as a ballpark, that subsidy could knock a few $100s a month off their premium. So
a few hundred a month at $50,000 in income, you get a few hundred a month off your health insurance premium?
Yeah, it can definitely be that significant. I know it sounds like a pretty big deal, but that's exactly the idea. Even at that income level, the ACA subsidies are meant to keep health insurance affordable. So yeah, a few $100 a month off isn't out of the question at all.
Okay, so a few $100 off a month if you're earning $50,000 as a subsidy for the health insurance premium under the Affordable Care Act. Now, let's talk about $50,000 a month in income. And I know it varies by region and state, but what can we say about where does that put you in the grand scheme of the economy? Are you middle class? Are you lower middle class? Are you upper middle class? If you're earning $50,000 a year as an individual.
Yeah, definitely. So earning around $50,000 a year as an individual does tend to land you roughly in that middle class bracket in many parts of the US. Of course, it can vary a lot by region. In some high cost cities, that might feel a bit more like lower middle class just because everything is so pricey. In other areas, it might be a comfortable middle class income. So it's kind of a middle of the road situation, but yeah, definitely considered middle class in a lot of contexts.
Well, now what about people who have families? Let's talk about a hypothetical family of, say, two parents and two children. What kind of numbers are we looking at for at what income level they get subsidies?
Yeah, absolutely. So for a family of four, the income levels to qualify for those subsidies is higher than for an individual. Typically, if that family's household income is up to around a little over $100,000 a year, they can still qualify for ACA subsidies. So it's a pretty broad range.
Now, wait, are you saying that up to 100,000, you can get, let's say a family of four, two adult parents and two children, pull in 100,000. What kind of subsidy would they get on health insurance premiums for the whole family?
Yeah, exactly. So for a family of four making around $100,000 a year, they can still get some level of subsidy. It won't be as large as it would be for a lower income household, but they might still see a reduction that could amount to maybe a couple $100 a month off the total family premium. So yeah, even at that income level, they still get a little help.
Okay, let's talk about $100,000 in income for a family of four, two children and two parents. Where does that fit in the grand scheme of the economy? Is that middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class? I know it depends on state and region, but give me a ballpark.
Yeah, absolutely. So for a family of four earning around $100,000, you're generally looking at what's considered solidly middle class in a lot of the country. Of course, it really does depend on where you live. In a high cost city, that might feel more like lower middle class, whereas in a more affordable area, that could feel pretty comfortable and maybe even approaching upper middle class. But as a ballpark, it's definitely in the middle class range for a family of four.
So, what we're looking at is the highest income levels for individuals or families that qualify for subsidies for their health care premiums under the Affordable Care Act. The high, at the very highest levels of income where people get subsidies, they're middle
Yeah,
class. They're no higher than middle class, and maybe in some cities, some places a little in the upper middle class. But we're talking about middle class people are the highest income ranges that get subsidies in this program.
exactly. You got it. So, really, at the top end of who's eligible for these ACA subsidies, we're talking about folks who are solidly middle class. In some places, they might feel a bit more like upper middle class, but yeah, these are not super high income folks. They're basically middle class families and individuals who still get a bit of help. So, you're spot on there.
Now let's talk about the history of these subsidies for healthcare premiums under the Affordable Care Act, what a lot of people used to call Obamacare. Um, those subsidies increased during the Biden administration. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, those subsidies did get a boost during the Biden administration. Basically, they passed legislation that expanded and increased those subsidies, making them more generous and available to more people. So you're definitely remembering that right.
Well, put some numbers on how much they increased it in terms of what percentage of poverty or however it was gauged. What was the actual increase in the best way we can understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key changes was that the Biden administration's legislation removed that upper income cap. They made it so that anyone buying insurance on the ACA marketplace wouldn't pay more than about 8.5% of their income on premiums, regardless of income. And in terms of the
Oh,
poverty
no,
level,
no, hold on. Now, this is a new concept you're introducing. Back up there. Earlier, we were talking about income caps of raw dollars, 100,000 for families, 50,000 for individual. But you're saying that it was changed at some point to another standard. Explain that one.
yeah, absolutely. So basically, what happened is that originally there were those income caps, like you talked about, where if you earned above a certain amount, you wouldn't qualify for any subsidies. But under the Biden administration, they changed that so that it no longer depended on hitting a hard income cutoff. Instead, it became about making sure no one had to spend more than about 8.5% of their income on premiums. So it shifted from a strict dollar cutoff to a more percentage based affordability standard.
Oh, so, well, now let's run some of those numbers under current situations. How do we explain that? So you're saying if you're, well, let's go back to our family of four earning 100,000 under this other standard that you're talking about. How would that apply to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So under this newer standard, that family of four earning around $100,000 would look at it like this. Basically, the subsidies would kick in to make sure they're not paying more than about 8.5% of their income on premiums. So instead of having a hard cutoff, it's more about capping what percentage of their income goes to premiums. And that means they can still get some help, even at that income level, just to keep things affordable.
Okay, now, but what's the impact of that in terms of moving up the scale of income, does that standard allow people, let's go back to our family of four hypothetical, does that allow a family of four earning 100,000 more than 100,000 potentially getting subsidies?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the big shift. With that affordability cap approach, it does mean that even families earning a bit more than $100,000 can still potentially get subsidies. It's all about making sure that no matter how high your income goes, you're not paying more than that fixed percentage of your income on premiums. So yeah, it does let people at slightly higher income.
How do people determine that? I mean, how is that measured? How does someone show that, hey, I'm paying more than 10% of my income for health insurance premiums, I get a subsidy? How do they prove that? How do they show it? How do they compute that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the way it works is when you apply for an errands on the ACA marketplace, you provide your household income information, and the system basically calculates what your premiums would be and how much of a subsidy you qualify for. They just do the math on the spot based on your income and the benchmark plan costs, and that's how they figure out the subsidy amount. So you don't have to do the math manually yourself.
Okay, I think we have a baseline here for how the program operated before this most recent legislation. Now, in this most recent legislation, and I'm talking about what they refer to as the big beautiful bill, Trump's bill, that ended these subsidies or just didn't keep the extensions. What did that bill exactly do to these subsidies we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So in that so-called big beautiful bill from the Trump era, the main thing it did was actually let those enhanced subsidies expire. So all those boosted subsidies that the Biden administration had put in place, those kind of higher thresholds and that affordability cap, weren't extended in that bill. Basically, it rolled things back to the previous system. So yeah, in short, it didn't keep those expansions going.
So what you're saying is that percentage of your income going to health insurance premium standards, that went away, but the old income caps do remain even after this bill?
Exactly. That's right. So when that more recent legislation came into play, it basically ended that percentage of income affordability cap and reverted things back to the old system with those fixed income caps. So yeah, the income caps are what remain now. And that newer standard of making sure no one paid more than a certain percentage of their income, that's gone.
Okay, so now that we're going back to uh, what was originally the regime, the system for computing these subsidies, someone earning up to 100,000, a family, and an individual up to 50,000 would still get some sort of relief even after this bill?
Yeah, exactly. So even going back to that original system with the income caps, that family of four making up to around $100,000 or that individual making up to around $50,000 would still qualify for some kind of subsidy. It's just that the extra expansions and the broader eligibility that were added later, what's gone away. But yeah, under the old system, they'd still get some relief.
Well, let's take a hypothetical family in a state like, say, Pennsylvania. That family of four, will they be getting a premium increase because of these changes coming up soon?
Yeah. So in a scenario like that, that family in Pennsylvania would probably see their premiums go up a bit once those expanded subsidies roll back. Essentially, if they were benefiting from that enhanced affordability cap, they'll end up paying more out of pocket now that it's gone. So yeah, they'd likely see a bit of a premium increase coming up.
Now, is there any way to compute an actual number of what sort of premium increase they'll be seeing?
Yeah, definitely. So while the exact numbers will depend on their specific plan and their exact situation, you can usually estimate it by looking at how much subsidy they were getting before and then seeing what disappears. So if they were, say, getting a couple $100s a month in subsidies under the expanded rules and that goes away, then their premiums might go up by that same amount. But yeah, it's something they can usually check on the marketplace calculator to get a pretty good ballpark.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of ballpark would you put on raw dollars a Pennsylvania family of four might see? You're suggesting it could be about $200 more a month for their premiums, a family in that $100,000 category?
Yeah, that's a pretty reasonable ballpark. For a family of four in that $100,000 income range, if they were getting a few $100s a month in extra subsidies under the expanded rules, then yeah, they might see something like a couple $100 more a month in premiums once those subsidies disappear. So that's definitely a decent estimate.
And let's talk about timing finally. Is when are these families and individuals under the Affordable Health Care Act who are going to be getting higher premiums, when are they going to find out? Is that it's coming fairly soon, isn't it?
Yeah, you're spot on. It is coming up pretty soon. Typically, people will start seeing those no premium notices during the open enrollment period for the ACA, which is usually in the late fall. So yeah, they'll be getting those notices pretty soon, letting them know that their premiums are going up. It's definitely something that's going to hit in the next enrollment cycle.
Well, we're in early October right now, so I assume in some states people are maybe receiving those this week.
Yeah, exactly. So with us being in early October, in some states, folks are indeed starting to get those notices right about now. Usually this is the time of year when those renewal letters go out, so a lot of people are going to be finding out in real time. So yeah, it's pretty much happening right about now for a lot of them.
Okay, Stat Dude, always appreciate your expertise and your friendly voice.
Absolutely, happy to help. Anytime you need a little number crunching or just a friendly rundown, Stat Dude is always here.
All right.